Okay, so this is my quick video, my reflection video based on my 8D modeling for the dinosaur. First, I'm gonna have a quick talk about just the general muscles and the references that I used for that. As you can see here, it's just the basic low poly and high poly mesh here. Right, this is a few more close-ups of the actual high poly mesh that I took and loaded onto a blackboard already. As you can see, the the muscle flow is mainly defined in the leg and the neck and arm area. You can see how the muscles are clearly they are divided in this picture. It's just a quick Google search that I used to find a bunch of pictures. I decided to go with the T-Rex because it's pretty much one of the more well-known dinosaurs around there, and I found it easier to find quicker reference pictures and more detailed ones. Look at such as this drawing that's one's made of the muscle flows, which you can see you got the calf muscle here that sticks out. It's quite predominant there. The indent in the tail and around the neck, and the mouth, as well as the very strong leg muscles that the dinosaur would have, and the uh, the indents leading into the arm as well. There's quite clearly, compared to some of these more professional ones, a fair amount of detail lacking, such as the ribs and the veins, and some of the more like detailed flaps in skin. You'll also notice that some of them mainly have like these spiky scales on the back, which is more of a game character than a than you'd expect from a traditional dinosaur, which would generally be smoother, but not completely smooth. This one doesn't have too much in the way of scales, and is seems to be more focused on the actual like detail of the anatomy than anything else. But this one in general has a lot of detail on quite fair few of the scales, especially on the back and around the mouth and on the legs here, which you can see that also been added, as I found it on quite a few different pictures that the T-Rexes had these predominant scales on the like their shin and their feet and their arms and fingers. I decided to add a few missing teeth and some cuts onto his face, as generally a T-Rex whose main weapon would be like his tail and his mouth basically to fight. It seemed logical that he'd have sustained some form of damage to it, or broken a few things at least. So I removed a few teeth and gouged away at the face to add like scars and cuts onto him. Something which you don't really see much in dinosaur characters that have been created. This one here is very detailed on the scales. It has a mix of like some very large ones and as well as a lot of smaller ones. Really drawing your attention into the face of this one. It shows a lot of detail around the eyes and the around the mouth, which, as you can clearly see, this being a much more professional model than mine just doesn't have. Next, I'm going to be getting onto the texture for my dinosaur here. Okay, just to have a quick flick through the different texture maps that I use. This is the base texture, which I got from ZBrush mainly, but I used my tablet to draw in some more detail on the in certain areas, such as like around here, adding some darker circles around most of the scales to make it like add depth to them without needing the norm map. Of course, there's a norm map on there too to create actual depth when placed into UDK. This is the general UVs that are used. It's main. You can tell some of the larger parts here. You got the legs, the head, the body, and the tail here, which are the main bulk of the dinosaur. They're being used as the bigger one, and the teeth and other such things are scattered around in place anywhere they'll fit really. This is the AO map. I had to fiddle about with the AO quite a lot, as generally being the inside of the mouth and the tongue anyway is I pretty much deleted the tongue and all the teeth because using this on them was just completely pointless. Same with the eyes as well. But on the it added a fair amount of detail to the inside of the mouth, like, for like the shadow and stuff, and around the eyes, and on the legs of the dinosaur as well. Uh, just gonna quickly jump and talk about the cat rig here. This is a very helpful to have the cat rig the cat rig working. To show just to quickly demonstrate here. It allowed me to get the basic walk pattern going on the dinosaur, but I did tweak it a fair amount. I did tweak it a fair amount in the using an adjustment layer. The basic cat motion one I found that I couldn't use as professionally as most other people probably did to like get everything moving completely. But so like the tail wagging there, I did most of that in myself, as well as the movement in the head and the jaw to make the dinosaur like growl as he does here. Just goes into his growling here. I use the it's quite clear where the cat rig was really used. It should be on the leg to do the strides. As it was much easier to get that working, and then change everything around myself to add weight to him and show him moving around like that. Also showing the idle socket here, which is pretty much all completely an adjustment layer that I made myself, just to add mainly because I just couldn't figure out how to use the cat motion to create an idle position. So I deleted any other cat motion I could find and just added an animation layer and adjusted everything myself. Mainly showing that him breathing and roaring at things, which general dinosaur-like behaviour. I used a couple videos for my inspiration for the walking cycle, as well as the idle one. I use this one quite well for the idle, because which shows him growling quite often and moving around, and there's quite a nice turntable of him to show how the body moves around when actually walking. This is where I got the idea for the tail wagging as well. I also looked at the walking with dinosaurs, but the resolution on this was terrible, so I didn't use this too much. But this was the walking with dinosaurs used by the BBC, if I recall, and it shows a much more realistic looking walk, I guess, but a much more boring one than this T-Rex here, who's got a much more like game character / cartoony walk that you'd expect from a game character, I guess, really. And it shows him looking much more aggressive and a lot more fluid than say this one would. As this one's, it's not exactly as interesting to watch, but it's quite clear that the time was put into it with the weight in each step and how seamlessly the body seems to move compared to the. I even created my own scales. I downloaded a few pictures to see what they were, to get a general idea of some scales and see what I could find. These were the three that I decided to stick with and try and do something with. This one I found to be a bit too uniform and samey, so after I tried messing around with it and applied it onto my dinosaur, it just looked really bad. So I decided to skip this one. This was a very good one that I found, but it was still very like uniform, much like this one. So I decided to stick with this pattern here, as it changes quite often, and after tweaking it a little, I managed to get quite a nice tileable section of it anyway to use, which as you can see when put next side by side. I added a bit of detail myself, like making certain things, adding more depth mainly to it with the black outlines, using just tablet really, and blurring the sides to make it tile a bit easier. This added a nice little touch to the dinosaur, creating the scales for it, which was better than most ones I could find with it. As far as colour came, I found quite a fair of a variation of different colours, mainly being green and whatever. But they had a fair few different patterns on them. This one has some red. This one's a very bizarre, quite clearly a cartoony one, as it's well drawn. But it's also a mix of oranges and blues than most, which are mainly browns and greens and whites. Something that you'd expect from more traditional like Jurassic Park and Walking with Dinosaurs type things, compared to this, which you'd probably expect from like a boss in a game or something. But I decided to stick with the more traditional one, as it just seemed to have made a bit more sense. By jumping really quickly into UDK, you can just to check out the seams really. Uh, the unwrap seems to have worked pretty well with the seams only really being noticeable when you're up close to it like this. As you zoom away just a tiny amount, you can't really see that, especially around the leg. The arm one is a bit more noticeable, but that's because of the how much it blurred due to just generally not making the arm big enough. The lighting, you can see affects it in quite very different ways. The in the much brighter lighting of it on this side, it seems a lot more, much more noticeable as because of like the shadows and such. But yeah, it's my dinosaur so far. Well, at the moment, pretty basic tongue there, and the scars and battle damage that I put onto myself, like the missing teeth and such, very noticeable. There's a lot of other improvements that can be put on it, like more scales, more noticeable scales, fixing the seams on some of these parts here, like more consistency here, as that's really dark and suddenly it goes light inside the mouth. The seam here is quite noticeable. The eyes just look dead. There's no gloss to them. They're not shiny at all. They're just one couple colours really. Maybe using a different variation of colours to add like, more variety to it, or just more uniqueness to it really, I guess. Maybe lightening up the colours a little bit instead of just needing the UDK lighting to do it for me. As you can see on the legs, it looks pretty black. On this side, it's very like light green and white and such, but on this side, it's very dark and not really exactly easy to see from a bit of a distance, which is from where the camera is viewing it, which is about here. Can't really see too much, but on the other side, probably positioning the camera here would have been a better idea, as be able to see the different colours more. But yeah, that's my reflective video.